Do Less, Achieve More: The Hidden Power of Selective Action. Written by Ronnie Rowland. Published by Growth Literacy Lounge. What if doing less was the key to accomplishing more? Imagine a life where progress isn't measured by how much you hustle, but by how wisely you choose your actions. In Do Less, Achieve More, we'll explore a powerful yet often overlooked truth. Success isn't born from constant motion, but from strategic stillness. Every day, you're bombarded with choices, distractions, and expectations. But what if the path to your greatest breakthroughs lies not in doing more, but in doing less with intention? You don't need more hours in the day. You need fewer, better decisions. Throughout this book, you'll discover how selective action can transform the way you work, think, and live. You'll learn to identify what truly matters, eliminate what doesn't, and create space for clarity, energy, and momentum. It's not about laziness, it's about leverage. As Peter Drucker once said, there is nothing so useless as doing efficiently that which should not be done at all. This idea sits at the core of our journey. We won't focus on working harder, we'll focus on working smarter. You'll be guided through a process that empowers you to let go of busyness and embrace focused, intentional action that yields exponential results. This isn't productivity for productivity's sake. This is purposeful living. So if you're ready to shift from overloaded to laser-focused, from scattered to strategic, welcome. It's time to stop chasing and start choosing. Let's begin. Chapter 1: The Shift That Changes Everything. What if the reason you feel exhausted isn't because you're not doing enough, but because you're doing too much of the wrong things? We live in a world that glorifies the grind. We're told that to succeed, we must be constantly moving, always reaching, endlessly producing. But what if the key to a more fulfilling, effective life lies in doing less, not out of avoidance, but by choice? Think about it. Every time you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to something else. The question isn't whether you're busy. It's whether you're busy doing what actually matters. You don't lack discipline, you lack direction. And that lack of clarity keeps you trapped in a cycle of motion without progress. But what if you could break the loop? This chapter introduces a new way of thinking: selective action. It's the practice of doing only what moves the needle, nothing more, nothing less. It's not about being passive. It's about being precise. Selective action means recognizing that not all effort is equal, and that not every task deserves your time. It's the difference between being productive and being effective. The first shift begins with awareness. Start by observing your day. Where does your energy go? What tasks drain you without delivering value? What obligations do you take on out of habit, guilt, or fear of missing out? You may be surprised to learn that much of your day is filled with actions that keep you busy but not better. Once you see this, you can begin to change it. Selective action invites you to pause before you act. It teaches you to trade urgency for clarity. Instead of reacting to every demand, you start responding with intention. You become the curator of your time, not the victim of it. You realize that energy is not infinite, and that managing it wisely is the real game changer. This idea is not new, but it's rarely practiced. Bruce Lee once said, "It is not a daily increase, but a daily decrease." Hack away at the unessential. That's what this book will help you do. Not in theory, but in real time. You will learn how to eliminate what doesn't serve you so that what does can finally thrive. There will be resistance. The world rewards busyness. Slowing down can feel uncomfortable at first, like you're missing something or falling behind. But this is just noise. You're not falling behind when you step away from the chaos. You're finally stepping into alignment. You're beginning to move with precision. You'll also notice how this shift affects more than just your schedule. It changes the way you think. It opens up mental bandwidth. You start solving problems faster, making decisions with confidence, and recognizing which opportunities are worth your time. When your life is no longer packed with low-impact tasks, you have space for high-impact results. Selective action isn't about doing nothing. It's about doing the right things at the right time for the right reasons. It's about learning to trust that simplicity can lead to success. It's about owning your choices, your time, and your direction. As we move through this journey, you'll see how this single shift, this decision to do less, can unlock more creativity, more energy, and more purpose than you ever thought possible. It's not a shortcut. It's a strategy. And once you experience its power, you'll wonder how you ever lived without it. Welcome to the first step. You've just opened the door to doing less and achieving more. Chapter 2: Why Doing More Isn't Working. You've been taught that the more you do, the further you'll go. Work harder. Say yes. Push through. It's an idea that's been repeated so often, it feels like truth. But if doing more really led to more success, wouldn't you already feel more accomplished? More at peace? More in control? Instead, you're exhausted, overwhelmed, and wondering why your effort isn't paying off. That's because effort without direction is just noise. Motion without clarity creates burnout, not breakthroughs. You're not failing because you're not trying hard enough. You're stuck because you're trying too hard in too many directions. And the truth is, doing more is not the answer, it's the problem. Consider how many tasks fill your day that feel urgent but are ultimately insignificant. Emails, meetings, errands, requests, favors, notifications. They pile up fast. They keep you moving, but not necessarily progressing. They give you the illusion of productivity while keeping you from the actions that actually matter. And slowly, without noticing, you become a manager of busywork instead of a builder of meaning. Most people don't stop to question the overload. They assume it's normal. They wear it like a badge of honor. But beneath the surface, they're drowning in obligations that add little to their goals or growth. The danger of doing more is that it can crowd out the space you need for real progress. That's why doing less is not a weakness, it's a discipline. Every yes you give carries a cost. Time, energy, focus, these are your most valuable resources, and they're not unlimited. When you spread them across too many commitments, everything suffers. You feel scattered. Your priorities blur. You move fast but get nowhere. Doing more may feel productive in the moment, but over time, it becomes unsustainable. Eventually, you burn out or break down, or both. To shift out of this cycle, you must challenge the belief that success requires constant hustle. It doesn't. What it requires is discernment. The ability to see clearly what matters and what doesn't. To know the difference between movement and progress. That's the heart of selective action. It's the mindset that not everything deserves your time just because it asks for it. You don't need to clear your entire calendar overnight. But you do need to start asking better questions. What are you saying yes to that no longer serves you? What are you tolerating out of habit instead of intention? What would your life look like if you let go of the excess and focused only on what drives meaningful results? As Greg McKeown puts it, if you don't prioritize your life, someone else will. And that's what happens when you live on autopilot. Your time is consumed by other people's agendas. You wake up one day and realize you've been busy living someone else's version of success. But you have a choice. You can redefine what success means for you. You can reclaim your time, your focus, and your energy. You can stop trying to do everything and start doing the right things. That shift may feel uncomfortable at first. Slowing down always does. But with discomfort comes clarity. With space comes insight. With focus comes power. Doing less is not about lowering your standards. It's about raising them, so high that only the essential makes the cut. It's about refusing to waste your potential on things that don't align with your purpose. It's about choosing effectiveness over effort. Because in the end, you won't be remembered for how many things you did. You'll be remembered for how well you did the things that truly mattered. And that starts with doing less. Chapter 3: The Hidden Cost of Always Saying Yes. At first, saying yes feels generous, cooperative, ambitious. It feels like the right thing to do. Someone asks for your time, your help, your energy, and without thinking you agree. You don't want to disappoint them. You want to seem capable. You want to prove yourself. But over time, all of those yes begin to add up. And before you realize it, your day belongs to everyone but you. You end up overcommit and underfulfilled. Your schedule becomes a list of obligations instead of opportunities. You move from task to task without a sense of purpose, carrying a low-grade frustration you can't explain. It's not because you're doing too little. It's because you're doing too much that doesn't align with who you are or where you're going. Saying yes may make things easier in the moment, but in the long run, it creates stress, resentment, and burnout. You can't give your best when you're spread thin. You can't focus when your mind is pulled in 10 directions. And you can't reach your potential when your priorities are buried beneath someone else's. Most people think the danger of overcommitting is exhaustion. But the real cost is something deeper: disconnection. You lose touch with your own goals. You forget what matters to you. You drift from your vision because you're constantly reacting to what others need. The longer this goes on, the more distant your purpose becomes. You're busy, but not aligned. Active, but not fulfilled. Every time you say yes without intention, you say no to something else without realizing it. You say no to rest. You say no to deep focus. You say no to your own creative energy. It's not that helping others is wrong. It's that helping everyone all the time comes at a quiet cost, and that cost is your own momentum. The turning point begins with awareness. Start noticing how often you agree out of obligation. How often you say yes before checking in with your capacity, your schedule, or your values. You may be surprised to find that your calendar is filled with commitments you never truly chose. They just happened. One by one. Because you didn't know how, or didn't feel allowed, to say no. But here's the truth: boundaries are not selfish. They're strategic. They protect your time so you can use it wisely. They protect your energy so you can invest it where it matters. Saying no is not rejection, it's redirection. It's a way of honoring your purpose and preserving your power. As Steve Jobs once said, it's only by saying no that you can concentrate on the things that are really important. That's not cold. That's clarity. When you learn to say no to the wrong things, you create space for the right ones to grow. You create space for your best work, your clearest thinking, your most meaningful results. It won't always be easy. Some people won't understand. They may expect the old version of you, the one who said yes to everything. But the goal isn't to please everyone. The goal is to live with focus and purpose. And that requires discipline. That requires choice. So the next time you're tempted to say yes out of guilt or fear, pause. Ask yourself, is this aligned with what I value? Is this helping me move forward, or pulling me off course? If the answer is no, then let it be no. Because your energy is limited. Your time is precious. And your purpose is worth protecting. Chapter 4: The Power of Strategic Elimination. Doing less isn't about doing nothing. It's about doing what matters most, and letting go of what doesn't. The mistake many people make is trying to organize the chaos instead of clearing it. They create to-do lists, color-coded calendars, and elaborate productivity systems, but their lives are still full of noise. Why? Because they're optimizing tasks that don't need to exist in the first place. You can't outperform clutter. You have to eliminate it. Strategic elimination is the process of intentionally removing anything that doesn't serve your goals. It's not random or reckless. It's precise. It's about looking at your commitments, routines, and habits with clear eyes and asking, is this necessary? Does this move me forward, or just keep me busy? Does this reflect who I am, or who I used to be? When you hold everything up to that kind of scrutiny, patterns start to emerge. You realize how many tasks you've inherited without question. You see how much of your time is spent reacting instead of choosing. You notice how often you do things out of obligation instead of alignment. These are the moments when you begin to take your time back. Elimination is uncomfortable at first. You may feel guilt for canceling a meeting, anxiety about leaving a project, or fear about letting go of a responsibility you've carried for years. But comfort is not the same as clarity. And holding on to everything means you're prioritizing nothing. Something has to go, not because it's bad, but because it's no longer essential. Letting go doesn't mean failure. It means focus. There is a freedom that comes with subtraction. When you remove the excess, you create space for rest, for creativity, for deeper work. You stop moving in circles and start moving with intention. You start to see results that once felt out of reach, not because you're doing more, but because what you're doing actually matters. As Tim Ferriss once noted, being busy is a form of laziness, lazy thinking and indiscriminate action. Elimination requires the opposite. It demands thought. It asks you to be deliberate, to look beyond urgency and ask what's truly valuable. Most people avoid this because it forces them to make hard choices. But those choices are where transformation begins. Start with small decisions. Look at your weekly schedule. What can you remove, delegate, or delay? Identify one task you've outgrown. Say no to one request that doesn't align with your focus. Cut one habit that no longer brings value. These may seem like minor changes, but over time, they compound. And soon, your life starts to feel lighter, sharper, aligned. The goal is not an empty calendar. The goal is a meaningful one. Elimination is a habit. It's not something you do once and forget. It's a mindset you adopt, a filter you apply to everything you take on. You become a guardian of your time. You protect your energy. You learn that every commitment carries a cost, and you only invest where there's real return. This process is not about being efficient, it's about being intentional. Because no matter how fast you run, it won't matter if you're on the wrong path. Elimination helps you stay on course. It reminds you that progress is not about piling more on your plate. It's about serving what truly matters and clearing the rest. The fewer the distractions, the greater the impact. And when you commit to subtraction, what's left is stronger than anything you could have added. Chapter 5. Focus is your superpower. In a world designed to scatter your attention, the ability to focus is not just a skill, it's a superpower. Every ping, buzz, and notification is a call to distraction. Every open tab, every unfinished task, every conversation left hanging, they all chip away at your mental clarity. And over time, your energy becomes divided, your thoughts fragmented, and your progress stalled. You start the day with good intentions and end it wondering where the time went. Distraction feels harmless. But it's costly. It steals your time in small increments, slowly enough that you barely notice. And then it drains your energy trying to recover it. The truth is, most people aren't failing because they lack ability, they're failing because they lack focus. And without focus, even your best efforts get diluted. Focus begins with clarity. If you don't know what matters, everything will feel important. And when everything feels important, your attention gets scattered across too many things. You try to multitask. You jump from one task to another. You confuse movement with progress. But busyness is not the same as impact. You can spend your entire day in motion and accomplish nothing meaningful. To regain your focus, you have to reclaim your attention. This means choosing what to ignore as much as choosing what to engage. It means protecting your mind from the noise that keeps you stuck. It means being ruthless about your priorities, not in a harsh way, but in a clear one. Focus isn't about doing more in less time. It's about doing fewer things better. Start by identifying your highest priority, the one thing that moves you forward. Ask yourself, if I only accomplished this today, would it matter? If the answer is yes, then everything else is secondary. Focus on that one thing, and give it your full energy. Don't just touch it for a few minutes. Go deep. Get lost in it. Let it consume your attention. That's where the magic happens. Flow is the natural result of focus. It's the state where time disappears and your mind becomes absorbed in the task at hand. You don't get there by accident. You get there by eliminating distractions and committing to one thing at a time. And the more often you experience it, the more progress you make, not just in your work, but in how you feel. Focus creates fulfillment. Because doing meaningful work deeply connects you to purpose. As Cal Newport said, clarity about what matters provides clarity about what does not. This is the essence of focus. You don't need to chase more. You need to subtract the unnecessary until what's left is powerful. You don't need more hours. You need fewer distractions. You don't need to hustle harder. You need to aim with precision. This takes practice. You won't always get it right. You'll get pulled off track, tempted by the urgent, seduced by the shallow. But each time you return to your focus, you're building a muscle. You're strengthening your ability to tune out what doesn't matter. And over time, that discipline becomes your advantage. Focus won't make you perfect. But it will make you powerful. It gives your actions weight. It gives your time meaning. It turns effort into progress. In a world that rewards doing everything, you'll find strength in doing only what counts. Because when your focus is clear, your results become inevitable. Chapter 6. Deciding what deserves your energy. Every day, you wake up with a limited amount of energy. Not just physical energy, but mental, emotional, and creative energy. And while time is measured by the clock, energy is measured by how well you use it. The problem is, most people spend their energy on everything, every decision, every conversation, every request, without ever stopping to ask what actually deserves it. Energy is your most valuable currency. Where you spend it determines what grows. And just like money, if you don't track where it's going, you'll always feel like there's not enough. You'll feel drained not because you did too much, but because you did too much of what didn't matter. We live in a culture that rewards overextension. The more you do, the more dedicated you appear. But that illusion comes at a cost. When your energy is scattered, your results become inconsistent. When your attention is divided, your outcomes are diluted. It's not that you're not capable, it's that your energy is leaking through tasks and obligations that never earned your focus in the first place. This is where the shift happens. You don't need to do more. You need to decide what's truly worth your energy. That starts by getting brutally honest about your commitments. Look at your calendar. Look at your task list. Ask yourself, why am I doing this? Who is this for? What return does this give me, emotionally, mentally, or practically? Often, the hardest part isn't identifying what drains you, it's letting it go. You hold on because it's familiar. Because you're afraid of disappointing someone. Because part of you believes you can do it all. But doing it all is not a badge of honor. It's a fast track to burnout. And protecting your energy requires the courage to say, not this, not now, not anymore. Energy management is not about being efficient. It's about being aligned. It's about understanding that every yes you give has an invisible cost. You might think you can fit one more thing into your day, but the real question is, at what expense? What will you have to sacrifice in attention, presence, or well-being just to make it fit? This isn't about avoiding hard work. It's about avoiding wasted work. When your energy is aligned with your priorities, effort becomes empowering instead of exhausting. You don't have to force motivation, it flows. You don't have to chase progress, it shows up, because you're no longer spread across things that don't matter. Toni Morrison once said, "You are not the work you do, you are the person you are." That distinction matters. Your value doesn't come from how much you do, but from how intentionally you show up. When you spend your energy wisely, you not only create better outcomes, you become a more present version of yourself. Calm. Focused. Purposeful. Start practicing the pause. Before you say yes, pause. Before you dive into a new task, pause. Ask, does this align with the life I want to create? Will this action multiply my energy, or drain it? If the answer is unclear, it's probably not the right use of your time. Over time, these small decisions shape everything. You begin to feel lighter, clearer, more capable. Not because your workload disappeared, but because your energy is finally working for you, not against you. You get one tank of energy each day. Spend it where it counts. Chapter 7. Redefining productivity on your terms. Most people chase productivity as if it's the finish line. They measure it in tasks completed, hours worked, and how full their calendar looks. But what if everything you've been taught about productivity is wrong? What if real productivity isn't about getting more done, but getting the right things done with less effort and more clarity? Busy doesn't always mean productive. In fact, it rarely does. Anyone can fill a day with motion. The real question is, did that motion create momentum? Did your effort move you towards something meaningful, or just keep you occupied? Too often, productivity becomes a numbers game. More emails, more calls, more meetings, more checkboxes. But more doesn't mean better. It just means more. Redefining productivity starts by breaking up with the idea that output equals value. You are not your to-do list. You are not the number of hours you grind out each day. You are not how many things you juggle at once. Real productivity is measured by progress, not pressure. It's about impact, not intensity. When you begin to see this, everything changes. You stop idolizing the hustle and start honoring your capacity. You stop chasing more and start protecting your focus. You realize that your time is not something to spend recklessly, it's something to invest with intention. True productivity isn't about maximizing every second. It's about maximizing meaning. It's the ability to work with rhythm instead of resistance. It's knowing when to lean in and when to pause. It's choosing depth over speed, alignment over urgency. And it begins with one simple truth: not everything is worth doing. You have permission to define productivity for yourself. You don't have to mimic someone else's schedule or follow someone else's playbook. What works for them may not work for you. Productivity should serve your goals, not stress you out. It should create space, not consume it. It should elevate your energy, not deplete it. Start by asking a better question: what does success look like for me today? Not in theory. Not in comparison. But in this moment, based on what actually matters. Maybe success means completing a critical task. Maybe it means solving a problem or making space to think clearly. Maybe it means resting so you can come back stronger. Productivity doesn't have to mean constant output. Sometimes stillness is the most strategic move you can make. As author Greg McKeown reminds us, essentialism is not about how to get more things done, it's about how to get the right things done. That's the shift. That's the power of doing less but better. You no longer measure your day by volume. You measure it by value. You'll still get things done, but what you get done will actually matter. You'll still be productive, but in a way that aligns with your life, not just your workload. You'll work smarter, think clearer, and move forward faster, not because you're doing more, but because you're doing less of what doesn't matter. This mindset takes practice. Old habits will try to pull you back into the noise. You'll be tempted to fill every gap, to chase every task, to respond to every request. But pause. Ask yourself, is this true productivity, or just activity in disguise? Redefining productivity is not about doing everything, it's about doing what matters most, with the least resistance and the most clarity. And when you do, you'll finally experience the freedom that productivity was supposed to bring all along. Because when you do less of what doesn't matter, you create more space for what does. Chapter 8: Letting Go of the Need to Prove. There's a quiet pressure that follows high achievers, the need to prove. Prove you're capable. Prove you're valuable. Prove you're working hard enough, fast enough, long enough. It doesn't always come from outside. Often, it's internal. A voice that says you haven't done enough, achieved enough, earned enough to finally slow down. And so you keep pushing. Not because it feels good, but because stopping feels like failure. But what if you don't need to prove anything? The constant need to prove creates a trap. You begin saying yes to things that don't align. You take on projects you don't want. You fill your calendar not because you need to, but because empty space makes you feel guilty. The problem isn't ambition. The problem is direction. When your drive is fueled by fear of being seen as lazy, weak, or replaceable, it becomes destructive. It keeps you running in circles, always chasing validation that never really satisfies. Letting go of the need to prove doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you start choosing. You shift your focus from pleasing others to aligning with yourself. You stop building a life that looks successful and start building one that feels right. You realize your value is not measured by how much you carry, but by how clearly you move toward what matters. This shift is powerful, but it's not always easy. We're conditioned to seek approval. We're taught to equate self-worth with output. And breaking that pattern can feel uncomfortable, like you're letting go of something that once kept you safe. But what kept you safe might also be keeping you stuck. You don't need to earn rest. You don't need to justify ease. You don't need to do more just to feel worthy of less. Worth isn't something you prove. It's something you own. And when you stop performing for others, you begin living for yourself. Ask yourself, who am I trying to impress? Whose approval am I waiting for? What would I do differently if I already believed I was enough? These questions are not just reflective, they're liberating. Because they reveal the places where fear still makes your choices for you. Fear of falling behind. Fear of being judged. Fear of being forgotten. But the truth is, the only person you need permission from is yourself. As Brené Brown once said, you either walk inside your story and own it, or you stand outside your story and hustle for your worthiness. That's the choice in front of you. Keep proving. Or start owning. You can continue to chase recognition. Or you can begin to trust that your value doesn't depend on constant validation. When you release the need to prove, you create space to act from purpose, not pressure. Your actions become cleaner. Your decisions become simpler. You don't overextend yourself just to be seen. You don't exhaust yourself trying to keep up. You let your energy flow where it's most impactful, not where it's most visible. People may notice the shift. Some will respect it. Others won't understand. But your life is not a performance. It's a practice. And letting go of the need to prove is how you begin practicing clarity, alignment, and peace. You're not here to prove. You're here to live. With intention. With focus. With freedom. And that begins the moment you stop needing to be more, and start honoring who you already are. Chapter 9. The Discipline of Saying No. Saying no sounds simple. But in practice, it's one of the hardest things to do. It brings discomfort. It brings hesitation. It stirs up fear, fear of missing out, fear of letting others down, fear of being seen as difficult or uncooperative. And yet, if you want to reclaim your time, protect your energy, and live a life aligned with what matters most, saying no is not optional. It's essential. You can't do everything. You're not supposed to. Every yes you say has a price. It costs you time, attention, and focus. It takes up space that could have gone towards something more meaningful. And the more you say yes out of habit, the more you dilute your ability to choose intentionally. Saying no isn't about being rigid or selfish. It's about being clear. It's the discipline of protecting what's sacred to you, your priorities, your boundaries, your values. It's the willingness to disappoint others so you don't have to constantly abandon yourself. And that's not weakness. That's strength. Most people think discipline is about willpower. But the deepest form of discipline is self-respect. When you respect your time, you don't give it away so easily. When you respect your focus, you don't let distractions dominate it. When you respect your purpose, you don't trade it for short-term comfort or people-pleasing. The challenge is that saying no often feels like conflict. It creates a pause in the pattern. You might be used to saying yes without thinking. You might be afraid of the awkward silence that follows. But growth lives in that pause. In that moment, you have a choice. You can default to the easy yes, or you can choose the intentional no. You don't have to justify your no. You don't have to explain yourself in paragraphs. A clear no is kinder than a resentful yes. And most of the time, the fear of saying no is louder than the consequences of actually doing it. People move on. Priorities shift. The world doesn't fall apart. And you're left with more space to do what truly matters. Think of no as a filter. It protects you from the noise. It keeps your commitments honest. It helps you focus not just on what's good, but on what's best. Every time you say no to what's not aligned, you're saying yes to what is. This doesn't mean you'll never be generous. It means your generosity will be real, not performative. It means when you say yes, it comes from alignment, not guilt. It means your actions carry more weight, because they come from clarity, not compliance. As Warren Buffett once said, "The difference between successful people and very successful people is that very successful people say no to almost everything." That's not a mindset of scarcity. That's a mindset of precision. When you stop trying to be everything to everyone, you start becoming more of who you actually are. The more you practice saying no, the more confident you become. It gets easier. You learn to say it without apology. Without panic. Without over-explaining. You learn to trust that every no makes room for a better yes. A yes that reflects your values. A yes that moves you forward. A yes that adds meaning to your life. Discipline isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters. And that starts with protecting your time like it actually belongs to you. Because it does. Chapter 10. Space is not a waste. We've been conditioned to fear empty space. Silence in conversation makes us uncomfortable. Blank spots in the calendar feel wrong. Gaps in our schedules seem like missed opportunities. So we fill the space. We overbook, overcommit, and overcompensate. But space isn't the enemy. In fact, space is where clarity lives. You can't think clearly if your mind is never still. You can't see possibilities when everything is crowded. You can't create, reflect, or grow if there's no room for new thoughts to emerge. Just because something isn't loud doesn't mean it isn't valuable. And just because space is quiet doesn't mean it's empty. The culture pushes constant movement. Fill your time. Maximize every moment. Stay busy, stay relevant, stay seen. But this kind of pace doesn't lead to better results, it leads to burnout. What's missing isn't more effort. It's more space. Space to breathe. Space to reset. Space to think before you act. When you create space in your life, it can feel unnatural at first. You may think you're being lazy. You may feel like you're falling behind. But those feelings are echoes of an outdated mindset. One that equates worth with activity. One that sees rest as weakness. One that confuses urgency with importance. But true productivity doesn't happen in chaos. It happens in clarity. And clarity can't exist without space. Space allows you to process what's working and what isn't. It helps you tune into what you've been ignoring. It gives you access to ideas that only arrive when the noise fades. Some of your best insights won't come when you're rushing. They'll come when you're still. You don't need to earn your space. You need to claim it. You need to protect it like you would any valuable resource. Because it is one. The more intentional space you create, the more intentional your actions become. You start making decisions based on direction, not pressure. You respond instead of react. You plan instead of panic. Creating space isn't about doing nothing. It's about doing less so you can notice more. It's about stepping back so you can see further. It's about resisting the pull to fill every gap and learning to trust that white space has a purpose. Some of the most successful people protect their space fiercely. They guard their mornings. They block out time to think. They pause before committing. Not because they have nothing to do, but because they know that clear minds make better moves. It's not a luxury. It's a strategy. As Lao Tzu wrote, to hold and fill a cup to overflowing is not as good as to stop in time. There is wisdom in restraint. There is power in leaving room. Start small. Don't overschedule every hour. Don't respond immediately to every request. Don't rush to fill silence. Let a little space in. Use it to check in with yourself. Use it to ask better questions. Use it to recover your focus. Over time, space becomes a rhythm. You stop fearing the gaps. You begin to rely on them. You recognize them as the pause between notes that gives the melody shape. Without space, everything blurs. With space, everything sharpens. You don't have to fill the silence to prove you're progressing. You don't have to keep moving to feel like you're growing. Sometimes the most powerful move is to pause. Space is not a waste. It's a decision. A discipline. A doorway. And it leads exactly where you need to go. Chapter 11. When less becomes a way of life. Doing less begins as a tactic. A way to reduce stress. A method for managing time. A response to burnout. At first, it feels like a correction, pulling back from the edge, trying to restore balance. But if you stay with it long enough, it becomes something more. It becomes a philosophy. A way of being. A quiet shift in how you live, decide, and move through the world. It starts with your calendar. You remove what drains you. You protect your time more fiercely. You notice how much lighter everything feels. But then the shift deepens. You become more thoughtful in conversation. You speak less but say more. You become more present in relationships. You stop filling the silence with noise. You allow things to breathe. Doing less doesn't mean doing nothing. It means becoming intentional. It means you begin to question everything you once accepted. You stop asking, "How much can I handle?" and start asking, "What is actually mine to carry?" You stop proving, pushing, and performing, and start choosing, aligning, and trusting. The world will still try to pull you back. It will praise your busyness and reward your overcommitment. It will tempt you with more goals, more tasks, more recognition. But you'll feel the difference. You'll notice the cost. You'll see how easily the wrong yes pulls you away from the right life. Simplicity isn't about lack. It's about focus. It's about making room for what you value. When you live with less noise, you hear your own voice more clearly. When you say no to what distracts, you say yes to what nourishes. It becomes less about achievement and more about alignment. Less about progress and more about peace. You'll start to crave space instead of speed. Depth instead of volume. Quality instead of quantity. You'll begin to move slower, but with more purpose. You won't react to everything. You'll observe more. Reflect more. Decide more consciously. Life doesn't have to be loud to be meaningful. As the philosopher Marcus Aurelius once said, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." That's what doing less gives you, the space to find what's already within you. Not through force, but through quiet. Not through addition, but through subtraction. This isn't a finish line. It's a way of traveling. A shift from reacting to responding. From striving to being. From doing more to becoming more. You start living by design instead of by default. You notice what energizes you. You let go of what doesn't. You no longer need external permission to choose ease, space, or simplicity. It doesn't mean life becomes perfect. You'll still face pressure. You'll still have deadlines and distractions. But your posture changes. You approach things from a grounded place. You know what matters to you, and you let that clarity guide your steps. You don't need to control everything. You just need to keep coming back to what matters most. Doing less is no longer a strategy to survive, it's a way to thrive. You begin to trust that what you leave out is just as important as what you choose to keep in. You begin to trust that fewer, better efforts lead to greater results. You begin to trust yourself. When less becomes your way of life, you don't lose momentum, you gain meaning. Take care and be well.